This is the Holly ebook cover. It's a cover that is used for Kindles or other e-readers of similar size. There are different variations to this. I did include them in the pattern. So for this one here, I have a magnet on the front, and on the side it has a spine, so it's made to look like a book. When you open it, you've got your Kindle right here, and it has two containers as well. This version of the container has a magnet on it, and then the other version has elastic. For the other closures, there's a side magnet option and an elastic option. This is the latest one that I created, and this is what you will see in this instruction video. I also did some of the instructions using elastic, and this is the one that I created for this video. So this is what the elastic one looks like. And it also has elastic containers as well as the elastic closure. These are the pieces I have cut out for this pattern. First off, I've got the exterior. This is the front and the back, and these are vinyl. This is the spine, and then I've got the center magnet pieces, and I went ahead and added Decovil Heavy to both of them. I've got my magnet here. This is the interior, and this is canvas. I haven't stabilized it, and I haven't stabilized these either. So as you notice, I haven't cut the corners here. They're supposed to be rounded corners, but I'm going to cut them a little bit later so that I can show you this little trick that I do with them. For the stabilizers, I have the version 2 stabilizer, and I have 4 of them. You need 4, and I also have not cut the corners on these as well. So because I'm using vinyl for the exterior, and there's going to be vinyl on the spine, the inside is going to be canvas. I don't want the spine to be super thick, so what I like to do is do the version 2 of the stabilizer. That way when you put it together, there's no stabilizer on the spine and it folds a lot better. So over here I did canvas, and so the stabilizer was okay with it for the most part. It doesn't puff up or anything. For this one, I used vinyl, and I used the version 2 stabilizer like this one, and there's no stabilization on the spine, so it's able to be a little bit more flat. For this one here, I stabilized all over, and it's vinyl all over, so there's a little bit of puffiness going on here because I used version 1 where the stabilizer goes all the way around, including the spine. So it's a little bit puffy on the spine. So it really depends on how you want your cover to look. And I think that doing the version 1 stabilizer for the flat version and having the materials be canvas is the best choice for that one. And then if you want to use vinyl and binding, so the 3 pieces here, then I suggest doing the version 2, which is just these stabilizers. The most important thing about this Holly cover is that these 2 interior and exterior pieces are sewn together like a sandwich, and you have to make sure that the edges are perfectly aligned with each other. Otherwise, there's gonna be parts where they don't really mesh together and it doesn't look like they're sewn together properly. So what you want to do is make sure that your stabilizers are the correct measurements to each other and the curves match. So what you want to do is have them mirrored. So what I do, since I have 4 of these, I'm going to mark which ones are the exterior pieces and which ones are the interior pieces. I wrote these on the not glue side of the stabilizer. So this part is the shiny side, it's got the glue on it, and this part is kind of matte. There's no glue on this one, so it's easier to write on. And also you'll be able to see it once you fuse the stabilizers onto your materials. Now I'm going to mark top, so I'll just do an arrow for the top. And I can also clearly see that this is the top because that's where I wrote my letters for exterior and interior. So it's pretty self-explanatory to me which part is top and which part is bottom. Then I'm going to turn it over so that they're mirrored. And then I'm going to write something that will tell me that these corners go together, these corners go together, and then these corners go together. So what I usually do are shapes. So I'll do a circle on this side, and then circle for this piece, and then a square here, and then a square for this piece. And then I'll do a heart here, and a heart here, and then a star here, and a star here. Next, I'm going to draw out the curved corners. I'm going to use my stabilizer for this one, and this is the version that I had, so this is what I'm going to use. And I'm just going to line it up on the corners. And if it's a little off, I'll fix it later, but I'm just going to do the corners for now. And I'm going to draw just like that on the top. And like that on the bottom. I'll put that to the side, and then I'll do the same for this one here. Now I'm going to match up these corners. I'm going to line them up the best that I can. And then I'll cut the corners carefully. Do the same for this side. I'm going to do the same thing for this one. This part is all done, and when you turn them over, you'll see where the shapes are, and then you'll know to match them up this way. If you're doing the version 1, which is just one full thing, you can go ahead and stabilize it to your interior and exterior. But if you're doing the book version, you'll have to sew the book first before you can stabilize it. So I'm going to move these to the side. I'm going to take the exteriors that I have, and I'm going to go ahead and mark off the corners here and cut them. Getting everything straight on the exterior or even the interior fabrics isn't nearly as important as getting it straight for the stabilizer, because there is a there's a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So the important part is getting the shape correct and precise on the stabilizer, not the exterior or interior. But you still want the curves to be fairly accurate and where they need to be. That way it's easier for you to fold them in when it's time to assemble them. Then I'm going to do the same thing for this one. This is just one whole thing, so the curves of this one are just here on these corners. What I'm going to do is just fold them like this. And then it doesn't matter which pattern you use as long as it's the curves, because All the curves for the exterior and interior pieces are the same. The only different ones are the stabilizer. So for stabilizing, you want to make sure you're using stabilizer pieces, and for the exterior and interior, you're using those pieces and not the stabilizer ones. This is the Decovil Heavy that I'm going to use. I did a mixture of Panel Stabilizer version 1, which is just one whole piece, and then Panel Stabilizer version 2, which are two pieces like this. The reason I did it this way was because the spine over here is not vinyl, and then the spine on this side is also not vinyl. So I wanted some kind of structure on the spine side, but I also didn't want it to be too thick. So like for this one, I did Decovil Heavy for both of the exterior and interior, and it ended up being a little bit too thick here, but both of the interior and exterior are vinyl, so that is thick to begin with. This one here I did canvas for exterior and interior, and it's a little bit thinner right here on the spine. So this is what I'm going for. Now we're going to sew the exterior pieces together. This is the front, this is the spine, and this is the back. So I'm going to place it like this, and I'm going to sew at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on this long edge here. Now after I've sewn these two pieces together, I'm going to sew the third piece onto the other side of the spine, and I'm going to sew it at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Here's what this looks like now. And then we're going to cut off a square from the seams over here on the corner, just so we can remove the bulk from it when we sew it together. I'm going to go a little bit further down. You want to do at least 1/2 inch. You want to make sure that you're not going too close to the seam right here, so you want to leave about 1/8 of an inch. And then do the same for this bottom side. Here's what it should look like now. And now what we're going to do is we're going to butterfly the seams, and that just means opening up the seams here, pressing it down so that you've got the seams going on either side, and this is going to make it easier to sew the top stitching. So we're going to do it for this side and then also for this side. If you used canvas or something that you can iron, you can go ahead and iron it now, or you can use a seam roller if you used vinyl or something similar. And then what we're going to do is top stitch all the way around both sides of the seam. So it's going to be on this side and this side at 1/8 inch seam allowance, and the seams back here will be opened. So make sure that when you're top stitching, these both sides are opened and apart, and that way all of the bulk is not going to be on one side or the other. It's going to be evenly distributed between both sides. Here's what the front looks like. You can see where the stitches are on either sides of the seams here and here, and then this is what it looks like on the back. Now that we have both of these pieces and they are all whole, we're going to add our stabilizers. So we're going to go on the back, and then starting with this one here, I will find my exterior stabilizers. So it's going to be these two here. And on the glue side, I'm going to make sure that the glue is facing the wrong side here. And then we are going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. And then also on the top. And make sure that it's the same for the bottom. And then do the same thing on this side. 1/2 inch. And then you're going to fuse all of these together. Once that's fused, you're going to do the same thing with this one here. Make sure there is a 1/2 inch seam allowance all around, and then fuse it. And it's important to make sure that all of the pieces match where they're supposed to. So we've got the interior here, they're going top, and then these are matching with the exterior pieces as well. So when you flip this over, you're going to have mirrors of them. This is especially important when you cut your own pieces, because when you cut the curves, they're not going to be 100% the same. If you use a cutting machine, then you don't have to worry about making sure that they're the same, because they're automatically should be the same. Once both of these are finished, what I like to do is just set them to the side and then get my closures done. So for this one, I'm doing this magnet here. So I'll get this done first, and then I'll go back to this. If you're doing the side closures, it's basically the same thing, except you're not doing raw edges on it. It's pretty easy to do, so you could follow the instructions on the pattern. If you're doing elastic for this one, I'll have that instructions in this video after I do this one, so it'll be inserted inside the video of this so that you can see how that's done. But let's move this out of the way first, and we're going to do this one. And then I'm just going to place these together and clip them. And then we want to sew at a scant 1/4 of an inch. That means just within 1/4. The stabilizers are at 1/4. So if we do a scant 1/4 of an inch, when we trim this down, we won't see the stabilizers on there. And then after you trim it down, you can also edge coat it if you like, or just leave it raw edges. Here's what it looks like sewn together. I sewed all around. And then now what I'm going to do is trim off the excess at about 1/8 inch from the seam. You can use a smaller scissor like this one or a larger one. It really doesn't matter, whatever you feel comfortable with, and whatever will get you the best results when you cut. Here it is. And then what I usually do with raw edges is burn the ends, or burn the edges, and that will get rid of any fuzzies. For the magnet closure, you're going to take apart your magnet, and then you're going to need one of these. So I usually like to do the thinner one, so this is that one, and then I'll put this to the side for the other part. And then you won't need this one. That will be for the other part as well. So you'll only need these three and the screws. When you're doing this kind of magnet, and also the side magnet, you want to make sure that you've got your exterior part and interior part. For mine, the exterior and interior are the same fabrics, so it really doesn't matter which side is which, but I do have to make sure that I know which side is the front and which side is the back, because when you put it on your cover, it needs to go like this and not like this. So this is the closure part. We have to make sure our magnet is facing the correct way, not upside down where this part is. So we're going to say that this is the front and this is the back. So this is going to go over here and this part is going to go back here. So first off, you can test the center of your magnet by placing the pattern here and use it as a guide, and then just poke down a little bit and that will be where the center is. And then when you go on to put the magnet on this one, you just follow where the center is supposed to be. However, not all magnets are built the same. So there are some where the center is actually not the center. So like for this one, let's see, this one's about 1 inch from the center to the bottom, and this one has just a little tiny bit, like 1/8 of an inch from the top. And then on the side, it's a little over 1 inch, and on this side, it's just about 1 inch. So this one is not perfectly centered, but it's pretty close. So I'm going to try to get it as centered as I can for this one, but I know that I will have to adjust. So for example, because this one is not symmetrical, I have to make sure that I have it facing the correct way when I place it here. So I'm just going to test how this is going to look if I place it centered. So this one would look like this. You can see here there's not that much space here and there's too much space on this side. So I do have to move it a little bit so that it looks more centered on the magnet. I'm gonna go ahead and take this off since I know that I don't need it, since I'm not going to be using the center guide, and I'm going to make my own center. Okay, I think this looks about right. It looks pretty centered on my magnet, so I'm just going to press it down. And then you can see where the indents are for the screws. That's where the holes are going to be for the screws. So I'm going to go ahead and poke the holes through here. Here are the holes for the magnet. I'm going to line them up. And then I'm going to press down on the fabric so that it becomes as flushed as possible, and that way the magnet will be sitting on it properly and not have too much bunched up fabric in between for the screws. Okay, so for this exterior, I'm going to do the elastic. I'm going to place this right on top, and then my elastic is 1 inch. You can do 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, or you can do 1 inch. This line is 1/4 inch, so I'm just going to extend it like that. And then I can see where I marked over here. And then I'll get my ruler and make sure that it's 1 inch. I went ahead and used a rotary cutter to cut the slits for it. And then what you're going to do is get your elastic for the closure and cut it, if you haven't done so already, to the size or to the length it says on the pattern. Here's mine, and then I'm going to burn the ends. I've got my fold over elastic here. This is the right side of the elastic and this is the wrong side. So what I'm going to do is make sure that this is facing the correct way. Most elastics that you use that are not fold over elastic, it doesn't really matter which is the right side or wrong side. But when you fold it over to the front of your cover, you want to make sure that the right side is facing out. So I'm going to have the right side of the cover facing up and then the wrong side of this elastic facing up. And then I'm going to insert the elastic through these slits. There are also instructions to install grommets if you prefer. And then that way you can use canvas instead of vinyl. So I've got this right here. And then on the back, this is what it's going to look like. Then you're going to take this and overlap them by about 1 inch and then sew a square or 2 straight lines. Here's what mine looks like, and then when you turn it over it looks like this. So we're going to fold this and then put the elastic all the way around, and this is pretty good right here. You don't want it to be super tight, but you also don't want it to be loose. I believe that this is pretty good with the way it is. If you feel like yours is too tight, then you'll have to just do it over. If you feel like it's a little bit too loose, you can just unpick this or just cut off a little bit of it and then sew it back together with the shorter elastic. So if you're doing a magnet, go ahead and install your magnet pieces here. It's going to be like this. You're going to put either your center or your side magnet here, and then the magnet piece is going to go on the exterior side. So your washer will go here, and then the magnet will go out here. And when you close it, the side flap is going to go over. Or if it's a side flap, it'll go like this, and then the center will go all the way over here. Now that the exterior closure is done, I'm going to do the interior part, and that's going to be where the container is going to be. For the container, it's these slits for the elastic, so I'm going to go on the wrong side of the interior, place this right on top, and then mark where the slits are going to be. My elastic are 1/4 inch, and this pattern is made for 1/4 inch, so I don't have to adjust anything. But if your elastic is a little bit wider, you want to go inside towards the center when you add extra length to your, or extra width to your elastic, not out, because then that will go towards the seam allowances and the spine. Here's what they look like, and then I'll cut the slits open. These are the slits for the elastic, so I'm just going to use my seam ripper here and make cuts for them. I've got my elastic here, and I'm going to start from the wrong side, and it doesn't matter where you start. Just going to use this tool to push it in. And then you're just going to go all the way around. Just burning it. I'm just burning it because I forgot to do it before, and this will help it from fraying. Then you're going to just have these overlap. Make sure that there's not any part of the panel that's bubbly and none of this is wavy. You don't want it to be too tight, like this is a little bit too tight, so I'm just going to pull this out a little bit more. Okay, so this is a little bit too loose. This one's pretty good right there. This one I'm going to give a little bit more. Now it's a little bit too loose, so just want to make sure that they're pretty even. That looks about right here. Over here, this looks about right. So I'm going to overlap this and then sew this down. This part is now sewn together, so you've got one loop going all the way around for your container. Now both of these pieces have elastics on them. This is for the container and this is for the closure. If you want to, you can stitch these closed so that way they don't move around. It will still be one whole thing, but once you stitch them, like over here, you stitch them on the outsides here, here, and here, they become their own separate things. So when you pull them, it's not going to pull from these back ends because these will be stitched down. And the same with this one, you can stitch it down here and here. That way when you flip it over to the front, when you close it, it will stop this elastic from pulling. Now I'm going to clip the corners here so that when I fold them in, they are more rounded and there's not too much bulk on them. I'm going to start with this one. And when you cut, you want to make sure that you're not too close to the stabilizer here. So this is about how you want to cut all the corners for all of them. For this one I did snips because it's vinyl, but then for this one, if you're using cotton woven or canvas, you can use scissors like this where it just kind of gets the edges, and then that will help with the corners. But you can also do snips for this one as well. Now we're going to fold in the edges. The seam allowance is 1/2 inch, but I don't want you to pay attention to that. What I want you to pay attention to are the edges of this stabilizer. So we're going to take some double-sided tape, place it all the way across the edges. We're going to start with the long edge over here. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing for this one. One thing that I will point out is the difference of materials. If you're using different materials like I am here, you might get different results for the shape of your interior and exterior, just because vinyl materials are thicker. And then you've got canvas and woven, which are thinner. So when you fold them over, you've got thicker pieces going over. So then your vinyl panel will be a little bit thicker than your canvas or woven panel. So they won't sit exactly flush. It will just be a very, very small difference. I'm going to do the canvas one first because these lay better than the vinyl one. Sometimes the vinyls will come up after you've already folded them down. So I'm going to just press the double-sided tape, and then I'm going to remove the backing. And then fold in. I'm going to skip the corners for now. I'm just going to do the straight edges. Okay, now for the corners, you want to try to get it as rounded as possible. So start with the center of the corner, work your way over to the edge, and press down as you go. And then when you turn it over, it's going to look like this. So this is the kind of corner that you want. You want to try to avoid bulky corners here where they kind of pop out, and you want to try to avoid corners that have a little bit of points on them. So you just want it to be smooth all the way around. Start with the middle part and then kind of push in, work your way around to the other side. Check how it looks on the back, make sure it looks good and all the curved corners look nice and there's nothing poking out, no sharp shapes anywhere. And then we're going to do the vinyl. Remove the double-sided tape. And then fold in. I also like to put some clips, especially here where the seams are, just to help keep it in place as I get the rest of the panel. Okay, now we're going to do the corners. Let me zoom in here. So this corner right here, I'm going to pull on this bottom one and pull it close to this edge here, and then do the same with this side. I'm going to pull it close, because if you just kind of fold it down, it's just going to go like that, but you don't want that. You want it closer to this side here. So I'm going to pull it that way, and then I'll take the next one and then pull it closer to the bottom, and then this one here, pull it closer to the left, and then for the middle part, just push it down and try to get it in the middle. So it should look like this, and then when you turn it over, you've got a nice rounded corner. Sometimes when you use vinyl, they will want to pop up again, so what I do is I take some double-sided tape and then I'll just press it in there just to keep them down, and then I'll work on the rest of the corners. If you have some parts where you clipped a little bit too close, make sure you pull it as much as you can, and that way it doesn't poke out when you sew the cover together. Just uncover it back up. Okay. So here's what this looks like now. Find the center of this panel here. And I'm going to use this one where I have the measurements like this, and then I have the center right there. And then I'm going to take this off, and what you do is find the center of this one, which is right here. Line it up with the center of the panel, and then where the Decovil heavy ends, I'm trying to see if I can show it right here, so you can see it on the camera right here. You can see where it ends right there. You're going to place it flush with the edge of the vinyl here, or the edge of your panel, and then make sure that this center is matched up with this center. And then I'm just going to place double-sided tape on both sides. Here and here, and I'll go ahead and peel this one off and place it just like that. I'll also place some clips right here. And then what I'll do is I'll put my Kindle right on top and fold this over just so I can see, like, it will give me a little bit of space right there. And then what I like to do is get a marker, an erasable marker, and place it right there. This one's black and my fabric, my vinyl is black, so it's probably going to be a little bit difficult to see, but we'll see how it goes. Let me turn this upside down so I don't accidentally break my screen. Okay, I'm going to make sure that the corners are lined up, the top, bottom, and the edges are lined up, and then I'm going to just turn this over and then press down gently. So I'm going to pull this open again, and then I can see where the marker left a mark right here, and that's where this magnet is supposed to go, this one here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and install it now. Here's what it looks like with the magnet in place. And then we can go ahead and finish it up by placing this over here. So in order to do that, we're going to add some more double-sided tape, and I'm going to place it all across the long side. And then this side as well. And then the short sides. And then I'll also go across. I'll go ahead and take these off, and then I'll add more double-sided tape. Don't forget the ones on the corners. And then I also like to add some tape across the spine or down the spine. And then if you want to go a little bit extra, you can also spray some spray adhesive. And that will help make sure everything stays down. Now I'm going to take these off. And then I'm going to lay this gently on top of the wrong side. So it's going to be wrong side to wrong side. And make sure that you've got your top and bottom, and then over here top and bottom, make sure everything is direction wise correct. If you're not using directional and everything is kind of the same, you want to make sure that your shapes here or whatever it is you used to make sure everything matches up are in the same place as the other shapes over here. Once you've got everything on top, you want to double check, make sure everything is lined up all around the sides, and then check the front and make sure everything is lined up from the top as well. And then we will go ahead and sew all around at 1/8 inch seam allowance. When you get to the curves, you want to push these curves in, and I just take a stiletto and then I just push them in like this. And make sure that there's no sharp edges. And then when you start going around the curves, whenever you put your needle up, or whenever you pull up the foot, you want to make sure that your needle is down. Here's what the cover looks like now. As you can see over here, it's not very puffy right here because I did the version 2 of the stabilizer, so you don't have the puffiness going on the spine. Everything's very flat. Here's what it looks like all sewn up all around the edges. I did 1/8 inch seam allowance, and for all of the top stitching I did a longer stitch length than I usually do for my seams. So for example, my seams are at a 4 and then my top stitching is at a 5. So here's what the inside looks like. This would be just a regular Kindle. I believe it's a Kindle Paperwhite. I don't think it's the larger one, it's the smaller one, but this is how it would look here. And then here's the back with the elastic right there. And then if you want to, usually I only do this for the flat version instead of the book version. What I do is measure 5.5 from the left edge, draw a line going down, and then I'll stitch down, and then I'll do the same for the right edge, and that will create a little spine right here. Let me show you what that looks like on one of my other ones. So here's what that looks like right here. Here's the inside, so you can see there's like a little spine right there, and it should just look like this from this angle. For this one, I'm doing a magnet container, so I do have to add the magnet on here first before it can be used. I've got the metal ring on my Kindle already, and the metal ring is just a metal ring. It's not magnetized at all. It doesn't stick to anything without a magnet. So these 3 are magnets, and there are many different kinds of them. I have used about 4 of them, and here's the 4th one here. This one is the thickest one. As you can see here, it's fairly thick. However, the sticky backing isn't as strong as some of these other ones, so you have to use glue on the back to make sure it sticks onto the fabric. The fabric you're using will also play a part in how well these stick to the fabric. If you're using vinyl or canvas, woven, whatever it is, there's going to be a difference in how well these stick. So if you want to make sure that they stick on there really well, I would recommend adding glue. And this is the kind of glue that I use. It's E6000, and it's clear, and it dries on clear when you put it on. So this magnet here is the strongest out of all the ones that I've tried, but it's also the thickest. This one here is the second strongest that I've tried, and it is not as thick as the other one, but it's still fairly thick. This one here is similar to this. The only difference that I could see was that it has the it has like something on top to keep all of these little pieces together, so that way they don't pull off as you use the the cover over time. This one just has the magnets. It doesn't have a thing on top, but this one was the cheapest one. But as far as magnets, these two have pretty much the same kind of strength. And then this one's the next strongest. And then, like I said, this one is the strongest of all of them, but it's also the most expensive. I have links on my Facebook group on where you can find these, but they're available on Amazon, AliExpress, and Temu. For this one, I'm going to use this. I've already tested it on a canvas, and the sticky backing is pretty strong and it doesn't come off. So you can use the pattern as a guide on where to put your magnet ring. Because I already have my ring on the back of my Kindle, what I'm going to do is just use that to help me figure out where to place this, just to make sure that I have it correct for my Kindle. So I'm going to take the sticky back, or the backing on this, and this is the sticky side, and then I'm going to place it right on top, right here. And you can see this is where the spine is, and then I'm gonna actually put it a little bit closer to the left. And that looks good, so I'm going to just press gently. Here are the two that I made for this video. This one has the Kindle like this, and then it's got the magnetic rings right here. This is the magnet and this is the metal ring. And then for this one here, you can put your Kindle right in here. As you can see, this is slightly smaller. And then this one's larger, and because of the case around it, it makes it even larger. So this would be the size of the larger Kindle Paperwhite signature, and it still fits in the cover.